This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Brittany is on assignment tonight. We begin with a story that has been developing throughout the afternoon in Winnipeg. Firefighters remain at the scene of the boarded-up Sutherland Hotel. A massive blaze erupted there at the Main Street Hotel, sending smoke and flames into the skies over Point Douglas. It is the latest building in the area to be gutted by flames. Let's take you right to the scene. That's where we find the CBC's Gavin Axelrod. So, Gavin, you've been at the scene throughout much of the day as firefighters have tried to get a handle on that blaze. Gavin, what's happening there now?
Well, Riley, it's just like you said, it was a massive fire, and smoke continues to pour out of this three-story building. It's the Sutherland Hotel. Crews have been on scene here since early this afternoon. Also this afternoon, Platoon Chief Steve Kumka spoke to media.
Basically, when crews arrived on scene, we had heavy smoke involvement and fire on the third floor, entire third floor. Structure was already compromised where you could see brown smoke. Some light smoke coming out of the back of the building. Eventually that moved to heavy smoke.
Now, just after that scrum, some flames started to lick out of the top of that building. And from where we were standing at the time, we could actually feel the heat from those flames. But the firefighters worked pretty quickly to put that out. Now, the boarded up building was listed for sale last month. We touched base with a real estate agent earlier this afternoon. Brad Gross said he recently sold the building and there was a possession date for June. Gross also said the building had been gutted with no water, no heating, no hydro. Now, and like you said earlier, Riley, this is just the latest in a series of fires in this part of the city. The platoon chief says they can't say for certain if anyone was inside.
Well, we think it's vacant because it was boarded up, but that we don't know if someone got in or anything. We wouldn't know. We did not check it because, again, the primary, secondary search we couldn't do due to fire involvement, and it's just not safe.
So, Gavin, what comes next for fire crews there?
Well, the crews are asking people to avoid the area. They really don't want people sort of coming down here, and they want traffic to stay out of the way. They also say they anticipate fighting this fire and fighting this blaze possibly up until tomorrow. Riley.
All right, CBC's Gavin Axelrod reporting from Maine and Sutherland at the scene of the fire there at the Sutherland Hotel. All right, let's take you overseas where there's been a major breakthrough in the Middle East crisis tonight. Israel and Hamas have agreed to a ceasefire in Gaza and a hostage release. This deal comes after intense negotiations in Doha. It consists of 3 phases and is set to go into effect on Sunday. The CBC's Crystal Gomansing has more on the deal to pause fighting in Gaza 15 months after it started.
The negotiating efforts have been successful for the two sides to reach an agreement.
For weeks, people around the world have been waiting to hear if the fighting in Gaza would stop. With a ceasefire deal done, scenes of joy erupted. In Khan Yunis, young people cheered and danced. By God, we are very happy that this crisis, sadness, bombing, and death that has happened to us is finally over, said Abdallah al-Baisuni. The deal has multiple phases, and while the parties have signed off, the hope is that it will lead to lasting peace. There was a ceasefire back in November 2023, but it held for just days. Qatar's Prime Minister is hopeful the deal that so many countries work to secure will in fact lead to lasting peace this time.
I believe that it all depends on the parties of the agreement and acting in good faith in that agreement in order to ensure that no collapse happening to that deal.
Now, in phase 1, Israeli forces are expected to remain in designated areas in Gaza. Palestinians will be allowed to return home to the north. Aid is to move unimpeded, and hostages are to be released. In exchange for imprisoned Palestinians from Israeli jails, 33 people held in Gaza will be set free. Women, children, older adults, and the sick.
For us, it's only the beginning. We want them all here.
Arnon Cohen gathered in Tel Aviv's Hostage Square with other Israelis, hoping for the safe return of loved ones. U.S. President Joe Biden says the deal is what he proposed months ago. And while he says his and President-elect Donald Trump's administration worked together with those in the Middle East, the incoming leader is not the reason the deal got done.
Thank you.
Brooks credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Is that a joke?
The Israeli cabinet still has to sign off on the agreement. They are expected to meet on Thursday. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
Well, now to some sad news here at home. Manitoba's Education Minister, Nello Altomare, has passed away. Altomare represented Transcona in the provincial legislature. He was first elected as an MLA in 2019, shortly after he was diagnosed with stage 2 Hodgkin's lymphoma. He announced he was in remission the following year. 14 weeks ago, he went on medical leave and stepped away from his position. On social media, Premier Wab Kinew posted his condolences, noting the work they did together, strengthening the province's nutrition program, and saying, quote, "I'll see you again soon, my friend." The flags outside the legislative building have been lowered to half-mast in Altomare's memoriam. He was 61 years old. Premier Kinew is in Ottawa right now, along with premiers from across the country, discussing how to respond to promised tariffs on Canadian products from incoming U.S. President Donald Trump. The premiers are not revealing any particular measure, but here's what Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had to say after the First Minister's meeting.
We will stand up for Canada. We will protect Canadians. We will make sure that we are there to show what this country is made of. At the same time, we've also agreed that no one region of the country should disproportionately bear the burden of standing up for all other Canadians. We have made it very clear that everything is on the table as potential responses, but we've also been very, very clear that it has to be fair across the country.
Ontario's premier said if Canada does impose retaliatory measures, they have to be hard and united. The premier of Alberta did not sign the joint statement. Danielle Smith says she opposes an export ban or tariff on Alberta oil going to the United States. Now, the possibility of tariffs coming just 1 week from now when Trump is inaugurated have some Manitobans and business owners worried. The CBC's Felicia Adam has that story.
Michael McCulloch says people are holding their breath over tariffs. He's the head of Food and Beverage Manitoba. The association represents 300 food and drink manufacturers, everything from farm to table.
I mean, this would be absolutely devastating.
He's talking about President-elect Donald Trump's threat of 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods going to the U.S. McCulloch says most locally grown products are sent over the border for processing before Manitobans can buy them.
Almost no food company even has a 25% margin. So the only place to pass that on is to the consumer. And I think this will impact consumers in Canada, in Manitoba, but also south of the border.
Suyik Ao is an associate professor of finance at the University of Manitoba. He says the looming threat of a tariff creates uncertainty for everyone in the province, not just business owners. Employees might also be impacted.
And that's going to cause them to delay investment, cut back orders, hours for employees, that kind of stuff, because they don't know what's going to happen, so they have to protect themselves.
Something echoed by Stephen Jaddock, who worries this means prices will go up.
If it does happen and it's followed through on and costs have to go up, it's going to go to the consumer, and I'm a consumer, so.
Earlier Wednesday in Ottawa, Premier Wab Kinew says provincial leaders are looking at a Canada First response.
So for me, it's all about having a new economic strategy for Canada. And for me, the strategy should be about making this country one that builds things again, one that makes things again.
McCulloch doesn't think that's a good idea. He thinks there should be more work to strengthen international trade.
A lot of the reason that that standards of living have increased so much over the last 50 years is because of trade. And to turn back from that would be unfortunate.
McCulloch says conversations with stakeholders are ongoing. Felicia Adam, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, here's a look at the river trail. Some folks getting outside today above seasonal for once here in southern Manitoba in January. Yes, a gorgeous day out there. Let's get a first check on your weather with weather specialist Ethan Williams.
Well, Riley, we have finally shaken the cold throughout much of Manitoba. Temperatures jumping into the plus temperatures today, above the freezing mark. You can kind of still see where that cold front line is, though, pretty much on the Manitoba-Ontario border, as temperatures there for our friends kind of still back a little bit below the freezing mark. We have seen a bit of cloud cover. We did have some flurries moving through overnight in Winnipeg in the Red River Valley, but the sun has come out. That cloud's starting to move down from the north now, and I think we'll get a little bit of some clearing skies as we head overnight, but through the day we'll start to see that increasing cloudiness starting around -6, so we're still in store for a nice warm day. As we get to the noon hour again, that's when we'll see that mix of sun and cloud. I think we'll hit our daytime high of -2 around 4 o'clock, but that's when the cloud builds in. That's when we also start to see the potential for a little bit of some snow tomorrow afternoon, and the winds picking up as well. All of this, the start of a messy weather system that's moving through the province, Riley. I'll have the details on that in your full forecast coming up.
Thanks, Ethan. After the break, the city is looking to replace its eye in the sky. More on the price tag next. The City of Winnipeg has chosen a replacement for its aging police helicopter. Winnipeg police have said their existing chopper needs major repairs and parts are becoming hard to come by, but it comes at a cost. The CBC's Cameron McLean has more.
The sight and sound of the Winnipeg Police Service's Air 1 helicopter have become familiar to Winnipeggers. Now the 14-year-old aircraft is nearing the end of its life. A new report recommends the city sign a lease-to-own contract with a Calgary company for a new chopper worth $13.5 million. Mayor Scott Gillingham says the helicopter is necessary for public safety.
There is value in ensuring that our Winnipeg Police Service has the tools necessary to do the work that they're doing to try to keep our city safe. And I think it's been shown time and again. The police have been clear on that.
Police have used the helicopter to help in pursuits, observe scenes from a safe distance, and spot fires. Originally bought for $3.5 million, operating costs have hovered around $2 million a year. Police say parts are increasingly hard to find, with wait times of 6 to 12 months. Police Board Chair Marcus Chambers says he supports the lease-to-own option rather than an outright purchase.
When you look at the age of the existing helicopter, the cost to replace parts that are needed to keep it up in the air are becoming more expensive and are harder to find. So going from a lease-to-own process is a little bit cheaper than outright purchase costs.
In 2023, Air 1 spent 864 hours in the air over 220 days. It was grounded for 145 days, either due to maintenance, weather, or staffing. The helicopter has faced criticism over the years due to its costs and concerns from community members who felt their neighborhoods were being targeted. Gillingham says the helicopter is worth it, but he would like to see the police explore other technology.
Yes, it is a significant price tag. But I'll be supporting their request for the lease to own. I think long term, I'd like to see the police looking at the idea of the utilization of drone technology.
If approved by council, the new helicopter will take up to 2 years to arrive. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A national Muslim advocacy group wants an apology from one of the candidates vying to lead Manitoba's Progressive Conservative Party. As the CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, it is the latest development in what is becoming an increasingly colorful leadership race.
On the road in Colorado, PC leadership candidate Wally Dowdrich had a message to race organizers.
Let's call up the party brass and ask them for 2 debates for the leadership candidates. Let's have a marketplace of ideas.
Dowdrich, who owns a hotel in Churchill, is campaigning for PC leader against Winnipeg's Abby Khan, the MLA for Fort White. The two leaders have only shared a stage once, in October, in Winnipeg, but there's been plenty of back and forth off stage. Earlier this month, Khan accused Dowdrich of using divisive language. In a December campaign letter, Dowdrich decried the rise of anti-Semitism and suggested temporary residents are to blame. Dowdrich wrote, "Anyone who comes here and fails to respect our laws and our traditions should be placed on the next plane back to the homeland they obviously prefer." When a Facebook user named Vicky Poutine copied the same letter, she added a tag stating, "We must stop Muslim Abby Khan from becoming Conservative leader." Wally Dowdrich's campaign reposted that comment on January 9th and deleted it 4 days later. Now, the National Council of Canadian Muslims wants an apology from Dowdrich and asked Manitoba PCs to condemn his behavior.
We find Mr. Dowdrich's repost highly irresponsible and divisive, and we have reached out to him, and we find it unacceptable.
Dowdrich's campaign said the repost was an honest mistake and called the controversy ridiculous. Campaign manager Joseph Ben-Ami said in a statement, the reference to Mr. Khan's Muslim faith was made at the end of a long post written by an individual not associated with our campaign. It was reposted by one of our staff who did not notice it. As soon as it was brought to our attention, it was immediately removed. In a statement, the PC Leadership Election Committee asked Dowdrich to confirm his commitment to ensuring the party is open to people of all religions. In a statement of his own, Khan said he was hurt by the shared post. But the Winnipeg MLA has other problems. Days before Justin Trudeau announced his plan to resign, a Conservative activist circulated images of Khan with the unpopular Liberal leader. The PCs plan to announce their next leader on April 26th. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A teenager has pleaded guilty to manslaughter and 2 counts of second-degree murder in the violent beating deaths of 3 people in the Point Douglas neighborhood. In August 2022, Danielle Ballantyne was found dead in an apartment building on Jarvis Avenue. Blocks away, 2 men in their 50s were found in critical condition after being brutally attacked. Both later died. The attacks all happened within hours of each other. Police say the attacks were unprovoked. Crown attorneys are recommending the teen, who was 15 at the time of the killings, be sentenced as an adult, which would mean an automatic life sentence. The judge will decide at a later date. Another teen has also been charged in the killings. As you saw earlier, folks eager to get outside today as we saw temperatures warming up above the freezing mark, officially getting to +1 here in Winnipeg this afternoon, feeling a lot warmer than it has over the last couple of days. How long will this warm last, though? Ethan Williams is back with a check on our forecast.
Well, Riley, I alluded to what could be a pretty messy weather system moving through the province, at least snow-wise. I think we're in for some significant accumulation through northern portions of the Interlake, especially Flin Flon through to Grand Rapids, Barons River, even God's Lake, in the path of some heavy snow, which is moving in as a result of a low-pressure system moving in from Saskatchewan. You can see it beginning there, though I think we'll start the day Thursday with some sunshine thanks to an area of high pressure over southern Manitoba. That system starts spilling its way in as we head through the afternoon hours of Thursday and into the kind of late afternoon, early evening around the supper hour. I think Winnipeg, that's when we'll start to see a band of some light snow moving through. Again, I think it's mostly central portions of the province, though, that's going to pick up that snow. We'll get a little more snow moving through southern portions of the province as we head through the very early morning hours on Friday before that starts to clear away, and some very cold temperatures in those clear skies on the other side of this system. So again, that line extending right through the middle of that snowfall warning zone there, up to 20 centimeters in locations like the Paw and over to Little Grand Rapids, maybe locally 25 centimeters. Again, Winnipeg, much of the south and portions of the southern Interlake, I think we're looking for maybe 2 to 4 centimeters here. So again, definitely not in that warning level criteria for snowfall, but we are definitely going to be seeing the winds if you're in the Red River Valley and in the Winnipeg area. Again, as we get into Friday, even some gusts near 70, not out of the question. And again, those are northwesterly winds, so some very brisk northerly air coming down. I think Marley might just be the coolest dog on the planet. Thanks to JC for sending in that photo. And Marley definitely will be a chilly dog once those colder temperatures start moving in. But in the meantime, you can get out and walk the dog before the snowfall hits on Thursday. I think we'll be seeing that cloud cover again moving in through the day. Temperatures, though, staying above seasonal in the Winnipeg area as we head through the afternoon. Quick brief look at your 3-day forecast here. Again, you'll see those temperatures start to drop Friday. That's when those winds really start to pick up. So that -4 probably feeling below -10. And that snow, the little bit of it that we'll get in the morning, will be blowing around before we get clearing into the afternoon. And then the colder temperatures set in for Saturday. Mostly sunny skies, but yes, with a little bit of wind. That, Riley, is going to be feeling like -30. I'll have a full look at the 7-day forecast coming up.
All right, so don't put the winter gear away just yet. Thanks, Ethan. All right, here's a look from the top of our CBC building down Portage Avenue as we head to break. We have more ahead. When we come back, stay with us. Now, it's being called a major turning point aimed at ending chronic homelessness in this province. Your Way Home, the NDP government's new homeless strategy. It sets what some consider a lofty goal of dismantling encampments one by one and moving people into housing. Now, part of that involves the province purchasing and renovating apartment buildings that will add 300 new units with support services. We'll dig into what exactly that looks like just ahead, but first, let's hear firsthand from people experiencing homelessness. CBC's Jim Agapito and Jason Empson spoke with some to get their thoughts on the province's plan.
What would it take for you to try and find, to want to leave an encampment or some shelter? What would you need?
I guess more supports on my behalf. So to get, motivation, and try to get into a stable environment, so away from drugs.
Is there enough social programs or whatnot helping you to do that currently right now?
No, because there's no funding in it, in the programs that we need to have those requirements. I think it's okay at encampments. They don't really do much on there. They're mostly there trying to survive, right? If there was more buildings available for rent and all that, and if they had more apartments for the homeless, it would be a lot easier on the cops and all that, for the crime rate and stuff like that. Yeah.
Where are you currently living right now, Catherine?
I'm homeless. I've been homeless for 3 to 4 years, about 4th year. Yeah.
Have you ever lived in any encampments and whatnot?
Yeah, I used to live at the waterfront. I used to live up in Chief Peguis, and I used to live at St. Anne's and Fermor.
How do you stay warm?
Well, this year I've been staying in the shelters. I just go back and forth to shelters sometimes.
Where do you feel most safe? Is it on at the shelters and on the streets, being by yourself? Well, where is it?
I usually like camping by myself just because it's just kind of hard with a lot of people living in a place at once. Like, it takes a while to get used to because I've usually had a place of my own. Like, I got homeless because I lost my job. I'm actually a level 2 electrician, and I lost my job, and then I couldn't pay for rent, so I lost my apartment, and so it got me here. So I just walk around and kill time, but I don't have the inhibition to seek for houses and stuff.
Can I ask why that is?
It just takes too much time out of my day. Like, I feel like I have to do other things than look for a house. It's not on my top priority list because I got other places I could go for right now, right?
So the province says encampments will only be decommissioned once move-in ready housing is secured for every person, with the hope of ending chronic homelessness altogether by 2031. Tessa Blakey-Whitecloud is the CEO of Silo Mission, but she was just hired to be the province's new senior advisor on ending chronic homelessness. She joined Marcy Marcusa on Information Radio.
A big task. Obviously, you were listening to some of these stories. You've heard them in your role at Siloam and also, in other places over the years. Mm-hmm. What stood out from you from that we just heard from people that will match up with the plan that you feel, you'll be meeting needs?
Yeah, so 2 pieces that I want to point out. So the first is that first individual talks about the housing has to have the right supports. The housing has to be the right kind of environment. It has to be funded adequately. It has to be a solution that actually works for him to pursue that housing, and that there is that need for more units. And this plan commits to 300 units specifically to address encampments, but also is on top of a $116 million investment in social housing. So we're not talking about just 300 units and we think that's going to solve homelessness. We're talking about a holistic all-of-government approach. And then secondly, when we're talking with that woman, I think one of the things that's really important, what she's saying, is that right now it does take a lot of time to look for housing because there isn't any. And so you're looking for a needle in a haystack. Yesterday at the press conference, I mentioned that, every month we have about 100 units that are deeply affordable come available in our city. And we have about 3,500 people competing for those units. So honestly, why bother? Like, I get where she's coming from. And so part of the work here is that these 300 units are going to be dedicated to supporting folks who are living unsheltered, while we're simultaneously still making that investment to create more social housing units in general.
I have to key in right away on some of the things that to me look like they could be some of the challenges with the plan, because it involves a lot of moving. So you've got to go in and talk to people who are in encampments, and you're moving them somewhere else. So that's the individual human thing. But then you're moving people out of Manitoba housing units right now as well as part of the plan to free up room there. People who would be eligible and maybe supported and would be deemed to be able to find success moving on to a different rental situation in Manitoba. But how do you even begin to approach that? Because you're basically coming in saying, I know you've lived here, but we're going to try to help you to move somewhere else.
That's going to be working with Manitoba Housing to say, who's got a solid rental history, who's been really stable. Manitoba Housing is rent geared to income, so people's income, can fluctuate. And then we can figure out, who's kind of already ready maybe to move on. It will be about making sure that those rent subsidies are there. It will be about making sure that there is support so that if something does fall apart in the first little while, there's a way to make sure that that doesn't lead to homelessness for somebody. But there's a lot of drive, right? Like there's a lot of people across sectors, and so including the private rental market, larger companies who are like, we want to be a part of the solution too. And so there are maybe a whole bunch of their units in their portfolio that they're willing to give up to a strategy like this to make sure that we can do the right thing by our neighbors in Winnipeg who are currently experiencing life on the street.
I know that from some of our reporting, the numbers that are needed for this, for one person to have wraparound support, in one of our reporting, it said the number was $50,000, and I think it was 2 support workers per one person, and that may be off. But are you confident that this system will be able to come up to capacity that quickly to properly support people?
So again, I think what's interesting is that this is a 30-day encampment plan. This isn't 30 days for all encampments, right? So the realism is built into the plan. We're going to work with folks in encampments. We're going to work with outreach providers who already have the relationships to understand who's ready as we bring units online. Those units are going to be tailored to specific populations and led by nonprofits that are already working with those community members to say, okay, what does that need to look like? And then we're going to move on to the next one. So it's going to be a slow build. We're not saying that this plan is going to solve anything overnight. It took us a long time to get here.
Now, a day after the province announced this plan to clear out encampments, the city has cancelled the pilot program to clean them up. Last spring, the city partnered with Main Street Project and other groups to do weekly cleanups at the encampments. Although the project removed a significant amount of waste, the city says community feedback was not positive. Residents living near encampments continue to complain about garbage, and fire safety concerns also did not improve. The city budgeted $170,000 for the project, but only ended up spending $24,000 due to the limited scope and short time period. The city says cleanups will continue on an as-needed basis. A program to help international students at the University of Winnipeg improve their English skills is coming to an end. The U of W announced it is cutting its English language program along with the university's women's soccer team. The school says it's facing significant financial challenges. It says enrollment in the language program is down due to international student caps imposed by the federal government. Asher Zhao is a University of Winnipeg collegiate student. He learned English before moving here with his family from China.
It's not just an English thing. To excel in any course, really, you need to be proficient in English, and there's no reason why we should be cutting the program out completely for international students.
The U of W says the program is no longer financially viable due to dropping enrollment. An international group of experts is proposing new ways to define and diagnose obesity. The idea is to move away from the controversial body mass index and to reduce stigma for people with larger bodies. Mike Crawley looks at how it could change the approach to healthcare.
Sandra Bernison volunteers with a weight loss support group called TOPS, which stands for Taking Off Pounds Sensibly. She hears from members how obesity affects their lives.
They're made to feel like they're not as good as a person that's slim.
BMI stands for Body Mass Index.
For decades, obesity has been defined by body mass index, a ratio of weight to height. Medical experts believe BMI is too blunt an instrument.
It doesn't tell me anything about your body fat, your muscle.
Canadian pediatrician Catherine Morrison runs this lab at McMaster University that can accurately measure people's metabolism. She's on the international panel that agreed on a new way to define and to diagnose obesity.
Very important to enable folks to get the treatment that they need. The advantage of them is
the key shift, emphasizing the health effects of excess body fat.
This removes, we hope, the sort of burden on the individual that they have in some way caused this condition for themselves, and that we will treat it as we do any other disease like cancer and type 2 diabetes.
The new diagnosis is officially called clinical obesity. The experts say the change communicates that obesity can be a serious illness, not a mere lifestyle choice. It means doctors will need to consider how excess fat is harming a person's organs or limiting their daily activity to make a diagnosis. This obesity specialist supports the shift.
Diabetes, heart disease, fatty liver, all of those medical conditions, real medical conditions that cause death, should be addressed by a medical team. A larger body size should not be addressed by a medical team.
Obesity increases the risk of diabetes, heart disease, and some cancers. The commission that developed the new definition says the growing use of weight loss drugs makes it all the more important to diagnose obesity accurately. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Hamilton.
The U.S. Health Agency is broadening its ban on an addictive known as red dye number 3. It's an additive, I should say. It's because of concerns of a cancer risk. The dye gives some candies, snacks, and maraschino cherries that bright red hue. It's also found in some dietary supplements and medicines, such as cough syrups. Almost 35 years ago, the U.S. banned it from cosmetics after a study found it caused cancer in lab rats. Food manufacturers have until January of 2027 to remove the dye from products. Still ahead, LA braces for dry, gusty winds that could spark new fires. We'll bring you the latest when we come back. Stay with us. People in the Los Angeles area are bracing for more dangerous and dry wind gusts that could trigger new wildfires. But there's hope the worst from the wildfires that started more than a week ago may have passed. Journalist Steve Futterman has the latest.
The winds did come, but they were not as strong as expected. And now it's hope the worst may be over.
We understand your desire to return to your community. However, significant safety and infrastructure issues remain.
Throughout the day, with the potential of strong winds, fire crews were pre-positioned in strategic locations, ready to jump on any new outbreaks. And there were several, but in each case, fire crews got the upper hand. This is one time people are happy the weather forecast was wrong. It appears Los Angeles has dodged a bullet. But there is still a long and difficult and expensive road ahead. A week after the fires began, the devastation is still hard to totally comprehend. Entire neighborhoods no longer exist. They are completely flattened. And examples of the human toll and the psychological fallout is evident every day.
When you stare at your front door that's gone, and you have the few moments to contemplate, what does this really mean to my life? I mean, I still don't fully understand everything I have is gone.
Also today, new reports in the Los Angeles Times that on the night the fires broke out, the LA Fire Department did not deploy all personnel available. The newspaper reports fire officials chose not to order the firefighters to remain on duty for the second shift last Tuesday as the winds were building, which would have doubled the personnel on hand.
We followed the system. We surged where we could surge. And in fact, I'll be the first one to stand up and say, yeah, we need help. Thank God for our agencies around us. That happened so quickly without delay with a phone call. We got the resources where we needed to do the greatest good at that time.
LA Mayor Karen Bass continues to be under fire for being in Ghana when the fires began. She was attending the inauguration of that country's new leader. Pictures published today show her at a cocktail party, supposedly taken when homes were burning. LA needs a break, and it may get one starting tomorrow. The forecast calls for calmer winds. Sea breezes will begin to come on shore and bring with it moisture, which should raise relative humidity. Even with that, however, there are still fires to put out. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Pacific Palisades, California.
Now, the Los Angeles area is home to a large Canadian population, and many are among those who lost everything to the fires. The CBC's Lindsay Duncombe spoke with some of them.
It's like we're starting over again, starting our life again.
Brian Hughes grabbed one guitar when he left his Altadena home and music studio. The rest are gone.
So how many guitars did you lose?
About 40.
40?
Yeah.
Hughes is originally from Edmonton. He leads the tour band for Canadian Celtic singer-songwriter Lorena McKennitt. His home was a place where people would gather to create music.
It was like a little oasis.
For now, he and his wife are staying with a friend from Ontario, soon moving to the California condo of a former guitar student from Edmonton.
And he said, hey man, you can, stay in my condo in Pasadena, till, middle of March, or maybe even longer if you want.
The hardest part is the anxiety of not knowing what's next.
This is my grandmother's.
Karen Weber's family lost their home in the Palisades. What they grabbed when they had to flee? So Canadian.
And we took the skates, of course. Yeah, didn't get the hockey equipment, but we got the skates.
They just managed to secure a rental home. It's been tough.
And the prices are going higher and higher and higher. They're asking for 2-year leases, which is crazy when you're so frantic. In the back of our mind, we're thinking maybe we'll spread our money a little better and come back to Vancouver for a couple months, and before we even start the building process.
With the leaves and the forest pattern, because that's what I left behind to come down here.
NASA scientist Raymond Francis saved the quilt his grandma made him to remind him of Sudbury.
A few little mementos.
And this space-themed box of precious mementos.
Here's my friend and the driveway.
He had just purchased his Altadena home. He's had offers to come stay in Canada, too.
But in the end, I came here to explore the planets, and that's where we do this. So I'm going to do my best to stay here.
Rover missions.
But like so many Canadians at the top of their fields, LA is the place to be. However changed it is. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Los Angeles.
And certainly there's been a lot of talk about the wind, especially in Southern California. Some gusts upwards of 100 kilometers an hour in the past week there, fueling those fires. We are looking at a bit of wind and some snow in our forecast here in Manitoba. Let's get a full check on our Manitoba weather forecast with Ethan Williams.
Well, Riley, I had teased some colder weather that is on our way, and you can see that kind of in our jet stream pattern that we see here. Nice warm air over southern Manitoba thanks to that jet stream extending a bit further to the north, but already a breakdown in that pattern starting to be noticed. And as we go through the next couple of days here, and that jet stream really dropping far south. In fact, much of North America going to be impacted by sub-zero temperatures all the way down to the southern United States over the next few days, and this means that temperatures into the minus 30s, wind chills into the minus 40s are possible for us here in Manitoba. But for overnight, as we go Wednesday into Thursday, things will stay pretty nice temperature-wise, especially throughout southern Manitoba. I think temperatures generally minus 5 to minus 10. A few flurries is still possible in eastern sections. I'll even include Winnipeg in that as we head through the night, but some clearing skies as we head out a little further west where those chillier temperatures are. We are watching cloud cover in western sections of the north before that snow begins to move in. Temperatures here, though, staying again above seasonal. Minus single digits overnight for this time of year is quite nice. We still see that cloud cover by the morning hours, and then it's as we get to that noon hour or so, the very beginnings of that system start to move in around Flin Flon, the Paw, over into the northern Interlake as we get a little bit later into the afternoon. Accumulating snowfall definitely starting to pick up, I think, as we head through the later morning hours and into the early afternoon. For southern Manitoba, of course, it's not so much the snow that's an issue for us, but it's going to be those strong wind gusts up to 50 kilometers an hour or so as we get into the afternoon. Even stronger on Friday, of course. But we start the day with some pretty mild temperatures. I think that's probably where we're going to end up as we head kind of through the afternoon. Minus 3, minus 4, some minus 5s out a little bit further west. That snow that's moving through impacting western sections of the province as we get into the early to mid-afternoon hours, and then pushing its way eastward into Winnipeg and the Red River Valley around the start of the drive home. And by the time the supper hour comes around, I think that's when we'll see some heavier snow, and then that moves into northwestern Ontario from there. So I'll have a full look at the 7-day forecast, including some frigid conditions that will be coming after this snowstorm moves through, Riley, coming up in a little bit.
All right. Thank you so much, Ethan. Well, it is the time of year when chilly Canadians like to head south, but one family in Saskatoon has a cautionary tale to share after a rough time in Mexico. They say their hotel pressured them to sign a non-disclosure agreement in exchange for medical help. And as Jeremy Warren reports, it's a story that the resort in Cancun worked to keep quiet.
It was a Christmas to remember at the Royalton Splash Riviera Resort in Cancun.
Booked at the Royalton.
But Allison Field says she felt more like a hostage than a guest. Field, her husband, and their 4-year-old son got food poisoning along with dozens of other guests, so sick they needed to go to the hospital. Field says resort staff told her she had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, or NDA, before leaving the resort.
It was clear, it was flagrantly clear that they really didn't care about us or our health. Like, my son is 4, he was vomiting and shaking, and they wouldn't let us leave, and she just kept trying to get me to sign the NDA. So yeah, I was incredibly upset.
Field says other resort guests have told her they were also pressured to sign a confidentiality agreement. One expert says NDAs are becoming more common in the image-obsessed hospitality industry.
What that message with the NDA sends is that we're not going to fix this problem. We don't care if our guests get sick. And that's not the image you want to put out to the broader audience when the NDA and the news of the NDAs do come out. It's not a good business practice.
Hotel giant Marriott International lends its brand and loyalty rewards program to the resort.
Royalton Splash is owned by Blue Diamond Resorts.
A Blue Diamond spokesperson says the company is investigating.
I felt like they were stopping us from receiving care. They were putting my family's lives in danger, really, when they were incredibly ill. Yeah, I did. I felt held hostage. And people did sign the NDAs, because if they're really sick and they really need to go to the hospital, sometimes they're just going to sign it. But it's totally under duress.
While some guests did sign the NDAs for compensation, Field is glad she did not. She's free to use her story as a warning to other travelers. Jeremy Warren, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Bit of a snowy look at the frozen river as we head to break. Ethan Williams has our 7-day forecast when we come back. Stay with us. Well, 4 Winnipeg arts groups will share a $2 million grant. The money will pay for capital projects downtown. In the end, the Royal Winnipeg Ballet, the Symphony Orchestra, Manitoba Theatre Centre, and Manitoba Opera were chosen.
We hope that this also contributes to the vibrancy of our downtown neighbourhood, especially Graham Avenue. And this investment by the City of Winnipeg allows us to focus on our core mission of teaching, creating, and performing.
The ballet is getting money to modernize its campus. The symphony will renovate the Pantasia's Playhouse Theatre. MTC will use the funding for safety and accessibility, and the opera will upgrade its ticketing systems.
Well, temperatures remaining warmer than normal over these next couple of days, but as that snow moves through the north, those winds really going to be picking up. And then our cold snap comes back, and we're looking at temperatures well into the -20s by the time we hit the end of the weekend and beginning of next week. Some wind chills there, especially overnight, getting near -40 or even a bit below that. I think we shouldn't rule out some extreme cold warnings for the province, including the Winnipeg area. We come out of that cold snap Tuesday. We start our recovery in earnest at that point with a little bit more cloud cover and those overnight lows not so fiercely cold. So Riley, a bit of a temperature roller coaster here, but we're all going to need to bundle up as we head toward the weekend.
All right, thanks, Ethan. Well, all eyes have been on the wind forecast in LA, with fears the wildfire situation there could get even worse. This as fires forced nearly 100,000 people from their homes. But on another day of intense tension, we thought we'd bring you a little bit of levity. So this was the moment comedian Leno pulled into the fire zone Tuesday with a vintage fire truck full of food, trying to keep hardworking firefighters and others on the front lines fed. He stopped to talk with our Cameron McIntosh, who flew down to California with videographer Tyson Kostyk to cover the fires.
Well, I just think whatever you can do to help out those that need some help. I mean, I've been very fortunate that California's been good to me, so you spread it around a little bit, you know.
So Leno told Cam that he hopes this was maybe a moment to help bring Americans together during tough times and hope to give a little bit of good in what has been a terrible couple of weeks in Southern California. There you go. And that is our program for this Wednesday. Thank you so much for being with us. Stay warm tonight. I know we're looking at some snow and some wind as we get into the day on Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.